Hey everybody, welcome back to another Get Real Q&A session. Today we have Bethany Janzen, who will introduce herself in a moment. Today's focus is on relationships and how to build them from the outset so that things like premarital sex and pregnancy hopefully become a non-issue, or at least you have a way to handle them. And as with all Get Real conversations and videos, our goal is to really talk about things honestly in a forthright manner. So if you have any questions or thoughts, please post them below. And just as we're having a conversation, keep in mind that we're going to be respectful of everybody's opinions, and we're just going to hold each other in a high regard and help each other along our path here.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited to be here. As was mentioned, I am Bethany Janzen, the Rocky Mountain Regional Coordinator for Students for Life of America. And I'm really excited because I think relationships are really important and it's something everybody goes through in their life. And so this is a really important topic for us to be able to talk about how to navigate this in a way that's going to be honoring God.
So Bethany, let's there's a lot of resources out there for what to do if you're pregnant, or messaging about don't get pregnant. And I think one of the areas that is lacking is a real discussion about how do you conduct a relationship? How do you seek a relationship, and how do you conduct a relationship from the outset so that premarital sex doesn't become an issue?
I think that's a really good point because oftentimes people don't really know how to have a healthy relationship. And these days, our media and our Netflix are constantly showing us what a relationship would look like, but it's not a good relationship. It's an unhealthy relationship. And so one of the things to really keep in mind is to start with a friendship. A basis of a friendship will help you to actually know this person and whether this is actually someone you want to be in a relationship and seriously want to date. Do you have the same things you like to do for fun? Does the other person actually know Jesus and have a relationship with him? And is that an important part of their life? And so pray while you're in this friendship building stage, the focus of your friendship at this point would be to grow in friends, grow as a friendship, to encourage each other in the Lord and not in romance. Now, then there does come a point, right, when you have that conversation, you have that DTR, and you say, okay, we both like each other, okay, let's date, right? And that comes a point when you need to actually have a conversation about what are our boundaries, what do we both think is a way that we want to handle this in a healthy manner. Now, last night, I had one of my best friends, and she texted me and she said, hey, I have a boyfriend, which for her is a really big deal because she's never had an official boyfriend before, even though she's had lots of guys, that have been friends. And some kind of quasi-friendship relationships have gone that way, but not an official boyfriend before. And so I was like, what in the world is happening here? So anyway, though, we had a really good conversation. And one of the things that she said is we discussed that we want to have conversation next week about what are our boundaries and, what are we going to be comfortable doing? What are we not? And that's something really to put in mind because sex isn't the only thing that you want to save for marriage. If that's the only thing you're saving for marriage, and if your thought is, okay, I'm dating this person and I can do everything else up to that line, it's a very difficult place to put yourself in because when you get to that line, you're in a very vulnerable spot. And then oftentimes you'll jump over that line without necessarily wanting to, but because you're so into this situation, you're so in love with each other, you're so physically involved. So from, so many friendships I've had with different girls, they've said, hey, we've sometimes gone farther with my boyfriend and I kind of regret that, and I had to step back. And one of my friends, she asked me to be her accountability partner on this. And she said that, and I said, well, how are you doing? A few months later, and she said, well, my boyfriend and I, we're kissing. And then we realized it made us think, babies. So we realized we have to stop kissing. And I think maybe kissing isn't, that big of a thing for every couple, but I think that is something to keep in mind, that sometimes you even want to save some things like heavy kissing for when you're really serious or when you're engaged, or sometimes even marriage, and, on your wedding day, so that you can make sure you're going to be in a really safe place with this person. And then also you want to really make sure you choose someone that has your same convictions. I think that's a really key part here because these days, a lot of times girls may keep themselves pure, maybe waiting for the right guy. But guys aren't, which is the really sad thing. Now, that's not the case with every guy, but I think there's this expectations in our culture that, oh, you can go and the girl needs to be pure, but the guy, well, we can't really expect that of him. So the reality is there are good guys out there. There are good guys left, like the guy that my good friend just started dating. And it's worth waiting. It's worth waiting for that because if he just loves you for your body, for how you look, that means that after you give him that, that's all he's going to. I mean, he can just get that from anyone else. He can just leave you and go and be with someone else, right? But if he loves you for your personality, for your love for God, that's going to be something that's going to hold you guys together. And it's really, that's what true love is. True love is not just loving someone for the fact that you look pretty. True love is loving them for who you truly are and not just your body.
Question for clarification. You use the term DTR. Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, DTR means define the relationship.
So we're going to have a DTR conversation. What does that look like?
So a DTR looks like essentially, I mean, either the guy or the girl can bring it up, but it's basically just saying, hey, I know we've been friends for a while, and it seems like you're saying nice things to me, and it seems like we're hanging out a lot. What is the intention you have for this relationship, right, or this friendship? Like, do you intend it to go more? Like, do you intend on dating, right? Or just kind of asking, hey, what are your intentions? Especially as a girl, that's a great place to just to ask those. And honestly, if this is a guy actually having this conversation, which I think is really great for the guys to take leadership on this, then he can, share and be like, hey, I really like you. I think you're a really awesome person. I'd like to be in a relationship with you, to court you or date you or whatever, the term you're using. And that's a really awesome way to then let that go into the conversation and discussion of where you're at.
Okay. So, we are made in God's image and we have passions, and it's pretty easy for things to get a little heated between men and women. So you alluded to having a safe phrase. What are some other ways for couples to handle a situation which maybe is getting a little warmed up?
Well, the first way to handle it is to say something, to say like, hey, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable here. And honestly, even sometimes you don't feel like you're even able to say something. And so honestly, just turn over and get out of there. Leave the room, put some water over your face if you need to. Do something to get yourself out of that situation. And that's what, in the Old Testament, that is what Joseph did when he was in, a situation. But having people who you can help to keep you accountable is also a really helpful thing. I know some people would text. I know, especially if they realized they were getting, struggling in that area, they would have a friend that they would text every half an hour when they were hanging out, so that they knew, that was coming up. They had to text their friend, and that would help to keep them chased and focused on, really having a God relationship. And another thing is just also setting boundaries even ahead of time and realizing, okay, we're getting close. Let's not sit in the car by ourselves, in a parking lot. So if the car's not moving, let's not be in the car by ourselves, something like that. We're saying like, hey, let's not be at, each other's houses when there's no one else there, so that you are in a public type of place. Or say, hey, let's meet at a park, right? Let's meet at a coffee shop, so that you know that you're not going to be put in that situation in the first place. Then again, when you get there, right, that's when you just have to physically often maybe just move and get out of there, because there's not a lot of other options unless you can say like, hey, I'm going to call my friend real fast, or having an excuse like that can be a helpful thing if you don't have one of those escape words too.
And this, I think, goes back to what you were saying at the beginning, which is to build a friendship, because when you have a real friendship, you can handle a situation like that with a lot of humor. It can, you can both laugh about it and pull apart without it having to be a trauma for anybody or anybody's feelings being hurt. That friendship component is so important, because when you have a friend, you treat them well and you treat them with a sense of integrity. So it's really worth building that at the outset.
And that's something that's really important too, because you want to date someone who you know actually does have a strong walk with God.